Well, I'll tell you, the little Windows boxes have been popping up. You've probably seen them. Download Windows 10. Download Windows 10. Now, of course, it's become a little bit urgent because there is only a certain amount of time before they'll charge you to download Windows 10, but they've really been encouraging us to do this for a while now. And if you're like me, you say, yeah, and now here's the time, and the experts are telling us we probably should do it. And one of those experts is David Lance. He's a network engineer in Portage with high-tech integrated technologies, and he's here to help us sort it out this morning. Dave, thanks for your time today.
No problem. Great to be here.
Why is Microsoft so anxious for us to upgrade such that they're willing to have us do it for free and be so outward about that?
Well, getting everybody to move to the consistent platform. It's a new day for Windows, ultimately. Version 10 is the core of what Windows will be for the rest of time.
Okay.
So it's a case that getting everybody on that same platform sure makes a lot of updating easy.
However, though, it doesn't seem like they've taken such an aggressive approach in the past. You know, the new stuff comes out and, you can take it or leave it.
Oh, indeed. Yeah, well, the world is changing.
Yeah.
Windows itself and its use and making it a player in today's market with a lot of people moving to using a cell phone in particular as their primary thing. So it's not necessarily Windows. That's the main driver of their operating system that somebody actually uses.
So, yeah, it makes sense that then this should be the most secure and modern operating system there is, and maybe that's enough to underscore the need for it.
Indeed. It is definitely, in my opinion, certainly, and a lot of the other people, the best Windows version yet. Most secure, certainly is faster. And starting up and shutting down, similar to Windows 8, even faster than that. But doing the upgrade on the same hardware, you will notice it actually runs faster than Windows 7 or 8 that you had prior.
Right. So what's, well, let me save this question. We'll ponder this through the break here, but we'll talk about what is different about 10, and in addition to the fact that it works faster. But also, this scares some people because, what was it, 7 or 8 that changed the start button thing?
Exactly, 8, yeah.
And that made people nervous, and you have to get used to that. And you think, man, I just learned the other thing. And, so we'll see if we can quell people's anxiety about that coming up in just a minute on WBCK. We're here with David Lance, high-tech integrated technologies of Portage. He's a network engineer, literally upgraded to Windows 10, hundreds of computers, right?
Absolutely.
So you have some perspective on this. There are a zillion questions. Let's try to get to some of them. How can you tell if your machine can handle it?
Well, generally speaking, right now, if your machine is running Windows 7 or 8, you have the requirements met for Windows 10. Generally speaking, there's a zillion ways to make a computer, and everybody's found every one of those.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, if it's a genuine version of Windows 7 or 8, it is viable for the upgrade.
Okay. So if you have 7 or 8, you can upgrade pretty easily. There's probably a couple of computers out there still running XP. Will that handle it?
No, unfortunately, there is no upgrade path for XP or Vista or certainly anything prior to Windows 7.
Okay.
So it's 7, Service Pack 1. Most everybody would have that in place, and then above, version 8.1 in particular, moving to 10, no problem.
Okay. They're not supporting XP these days, are they?
No, haven't been for a bit. Yeah.
Okay. So what about the hard drive space? There's been some chatter out there that this takes up quite a bit of space. Is that true?
Well, the requirements specifically are that it's right about 20 gigabytes.
Okay.
That's about it. I mean, generally there's a couple of different flavors, 64-bit, 32-bit. Just depends on what version of Windows that you have now, and that's what will upgrade to that same thing. 32-bit is just, it's 16 gigabytes, 64, 20 gigabytes. That's the requirement of space available on the drive. When the upgrade occurs, what happens actually is that it makes another Windows folder on your machine, and that is the upgrade. It renames the original one Windows.old. So it actually is installing an entire, new operating system, Windows 10. Then it ports or imports all of your profile from the previous settings, and it retains your programs, retains everything about your user, all your files, everything that you had originally would still be there.
So does that mean then that your old version of Windows is still taking up space?
Parts of it are still taking up space because you have the option of uninstalling or going back to your previous operating system if you wanted to.
So we need 20 gigs of space to some extent in addition to what we're already using, but probably not.
Correct.
Entirely.
I mean, that would be the ideal situation. Windows does require a specific amount of free space to actually function.
Right.
If you're running Windows 7, Windows 8 certainly, space is rather cheap these days. So a lot of systems that were produced in the last 5 years, 8 years, they've got at least an 80 gig drive in them. A lot of them would be larger than that. In the last few years, they'd be terabyte drives. So, yeah.
Theory, there's lots of elbow room there.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, what if you download and instead of downloading it to your drive on the computer, you download it to a jump drive or an external drive? Can you still install it from there?
Sure. There is at the upgrade site at Microsoft, they give you many different options. One of those options is the install tool. Basically, it gives you the ability to download the entire file, which is about 2.8 gigabytes. It's a pretty good size file to download. And that's when you're actually doing the upgrade without that, that's what you're coming down to your machine. They give you the ability to have a tool, and you can create that and put it on a thumb drive and actually upgrade many machines if you wanted to with that same thing.
I see. Interesting. Yesterday, I said this earlier, I have two computers at home. One I use more than the other, and I thought as a trial to allow myself something to talk about here today, which it did do, I hit the download it now, okay, and it shows you that circle going around and says, we're downloading it now. In a moment, we'll allow you to continue with the upgrade or wait and do it later. It never changed. 3 hours later, it was still there with a little circle going around, and as far as I could tell, it never downloaded.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this is a computer that was off for a while. Maybe that has something to do with it.
That is a possibility. It comes down to what is the level of update of the current operating system, Windows 7, Windows 8. Some are a little more prepared for that upgrade to take place. In particular, I've come across that particular issue many, many, many times. And it has to do with Windows Update, the service that's already on Windows 7 that you're upgrading from. A lot of times when you see that, all you have to do is go to Services and stop Windows Update. Instantly, it continues with the upgrade process.
Interesting. Okay. Well, yeah, it might be a good idea to make sure that I have all the updates, and other folks might encounter this too before you try and download this.
That is always advisable.
Yeah, all right.
Absolutely.
We'll come back in just a minute and talk more about this. We're talking about Windows 10. David Lance is here from High Tech Integrated Technologies in Portage, and I guess one of the things we should talk about is the notion that one of the complaints about Windows 8 was, where'd my start button go? How does all this work? We'll talk about how that works with Windows 10 in just a second on WBCK 8. Hey, David Lance is here from High Tech Integrated Technologies. We're talking about upgrading to Windows 10. You've seen that box, and now, of course, the urgency is amped up because Windows says you have until X date. What is it, the end of the month or something?
You have 2 weeks from today.
Yeah,
actually,
to do it for free, and then after that, you'll pay like we do every other old time to do this. But for now, we're moving in a direction where you could do this free, just to it's sort of a motivator to get people on a level playing field with the most modern operating system. So, as I mentioned, one of the challenges with some of these new things, particularly the last time we did this with 8. That old start button at the bottom left, where you really, they named it start button for a reason, you start there most of the time, wasn't there. Yeah. And it was more of a, well, I shouldn't say more of a, but it incorporated a tablet-based touch kind of screen. But for folks like me who are still using your computer on your desktop without a touch screen, this became a little bit of a juggling act. How does Windows 10 take that into account?
Well, it's kind of a kinder, gentler interface, if you will, because it sort of incorporates both things. You still have a traditional starting button, and indeed, when you touch it, you have your apps show up right there and all the other little things that go with your user. And then over to the right of that, basically are the tiles, a tile-looking interface similar to what was in Windows 8.
Okay.
So you can actually, right from my settings, easily go to the tile interface, the full screen tile if you like, or go to the traditional Windows interface. Also, there is certainly something I put on almost every business computer that I put in place, simply because a lot of business folks have been using Windows for a long, long time, and they're used to a certain way of working with it. And going to classicshell.net.
Classic Shell.
That particular website, there's only one little download that you can get from there, and it's a thing called Classic Shell. And on any Windows 8 or 10 machine, you can certainly put the traditional start button back in place. And it looks almost identical to everything that ever was. You can actually set it. There's a thing called skins, and it make it look like Windows 7, Windows XP, make it look like versions of Windows prior to that.
Now we're talking. For those of us who don't like change.
There you go.
We can do that.
But the other benefits all there as well. So it's you've got the best of both worlds.
Should we be clearing out antivirus stuff and all that old stuff that's on there now before we do this upgrade, or does that work its way through on its own?
When you do the upgrade, there is a process that it goes through, and it looks at everything, and is it prepared to have the upgrade go ahead.
Okay.
If it sees something that needs to be uninstalled, it will list it, and it'll say, okay, we want to uninstall these things. It will actually allow you to do that at that point and then continue. So, I mean, something like Symantec antivirus, endpoint protection, typically is something that cannot be on the machine while the upgrade occurs. So it will say, you got to uninstall this. And it will lead you through that part of the wizard and actually do that for you, then proceed.
This has actually worked out to be a lot easier than it used to be. You used to have to try and figure these things out. Now it walks you through it.
Indeed. Oh, yes. Wizard.
What about a web browser? You know, Explorer was sort of languishing out there, and there were a lot of competitors for it now. Will Windows 10 have a new one?
Windows 10 has a new browser called the Edge.
The Edge?
The Edge. And it is compared to other browsers, rather Spartan-looking in its presentation.
Okay.
But very, very fast and all about the future, basically. Integration with an interface with Windows called Cortana, which is a way of speaking to your computer. It's artificial intelligence that comes with Windows 10. Pretty darn amazing technology for free.
Okay, so Explorer is gone then?
No, Explorer is still there.
Okay.
Or whatever you had in the past, those browsers are still there.
Okay.
You can define any browser to be the default browser on your machine. However, when you do the upgrade, the Edge is considered the default browser.
Okay.
One of the other things that it does change also, and I usually change back, is the default viewer for PDF files is also the Edge.
Oh, interesting.
So usually I go in and change that back to Adobe. Typically.
Yep. All right. So the Edge then would be, sounds like a radio station. The Edge sounds like that would be the latest and greatest browser for now, at least.
Indeed, it is. It's made for sites that are called HTML5, the future of everything on the internet. There are some places that you could browse to that it would not be compatible with, like banking sites in particular. There are some banking sites that are going to, when you first go there, it looks at what browser are you using, and then it presents the interface for that. It's going to say, you can't use this browser on here. until they get, with the times and do things.
I see.
You got to use Internet Explorer. Some require Internet Explorer.
Okay.
Some banking sites in particular, financial institutions.
So these are things we'll figure out as we go along. If you click Open Edge after you do this install and try and go to your usual site, you'll find out.
Yep, exactly.
Whether that's going to work or not. This doesn't wipe out any shortcuts or favorites or anything you usually have.
With the upgrade, everything that you had before is still there. Internet Explorer is still there. Favorites, everything you had in Internet Explorer, still the same.
Okay. So before we go, I must ask, what if somebody says, I'm not doing it, and I'm sticking with what I have? What happens in the long run there?
Well, if you're on Windows 7, generally speaking, Microsoft supports operating systems for 10 years.
Okay.
Well, you got about 2 more years to go, and they're absolutely positively not going to be supported in any way. This is an easy way to upgrade. After that, going to 10, the home version of 10 is going to be about $100.
Okay.
The professional version is going to be something on the order of about $160. So
think about your wallet.
Exactly.
When that little menu pops up.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. Well, David, we appreciate the time you've given us on this. If somebody has an office where they have a number of these to upgrade, I bet you get phone calls from folks like that saying, help us through this.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And if someone's listening now who says, I want that guy to help me figure it out, how do they find you?
They can certainly give me a call anytime, 269-377-9595.
377-9595. David Lance with High Tech Integrated Technologies of Portage. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Off we go to Windows 10.